Alrighty, in the Christmas of 2020 I made an Apex Legends gun tier list, and that's my most popular video. Well, you know what time it is, it's time for the Apex Legends tier list. Like usual, I'll be talking about what buffs or changes Legends need for them to be useful and viable in high level and ranked play. Here we go! First, like usual, is F tier, and just like the gun tier list, I don't think that any Legends belong in this tier. They're all too good to be F tier at this point. Next, we have D tier. Now, a lot of complaints can be made about Rampart, or Octane, or Loba. They should be in this tier, but no, this is the first season where no Legends are below C tier. Time for C tier. C tier Legends can be useful in some scenarios, but are just not a good pick if you want to do really well. Granted, you can do well by running these Legends, just is not my recommendation unless you have some experience with their abilities. First up is Mirage. Mirage has no team play value whatsoever. Yes, his passive is really good in a gunfight, but in ranked games he is undoubtedly the worst Legend. His buff makes his clones have footsteps. It's a very welcome addition, but hasn't really changed him all that much. His ultimate is still easily combated. His tactical is pretty much useless because no one except on the rare occasion that you face a player that has played 2 games gets fooled by the bamboozles. The only thing that's keeping him afloat in ranked games right now is his passive. Now it's time for Rampart. Rampart is an interesting legend. Sometimes when I play Rampart I feel like I'm cracked out of my mind, but then other times I place down a wall and it immediately gets broken and I die to the hands of a level 15 Lifeline who doesn't know how to aim down sight. Thankfully, she got a fairly large buff this season, not just her abilities, but the Spitfire got a massive buff as well, which in turn buffed Rampart. Her walls now have 40 health when being deployed, her turret can go an extra 30 degrees, but in order for her to be higher than C tier, she needs to appeal to ranged players, which she does not. In order for her to be viable in ranked games, her turret needs to be able to turn 360 degrees. If respawn did this, she would most likely be an A tier legend. Maybe B tier, but probably A tier. And that does it for C tier. Now it's time for B tier. B tier Legends can be very good in most scenarios, but won't always bring you the win. You would most likely be in better hands of a legend from the A or S tiers. First up, we have Bangalore. Bangalore, much like Rampart, has mixed feelings of people from the Apex community. Some, like myself, love Bangalore but feel she needs buffs. Others think that she should go get RKO'd into F tier. She's a great legend with amazing potential, but people are using her wrong. Don't camp with Bangalore, be aggressive. Now that the era of Bloodhound mains has been transitioned over to a meta Horizons, Bangalore is able to thrive again. Yes, her smokes are disorienting to her team as well, but being able to heal, finish, and loot up with no one able to see you makes her really, really good in ranked. If there was a tier list for rezzing, Bangalore would be like really high up, like A tier. And her passive is just amazing. The only way to buff her would be to increase the damage on her ult or decrease the time it takes for the missiles to hit their targets. Then she would be a solid A tier legend. Next, we have Loba. Now I love Loba, not just for her ultimate, but her passive as well. Being able to take unlimited ammo in fights and being able to see very rare loot through walls is so good. Her tactical, however, not so much. That's the only really thing that brings her down a lot. Is still the glitchiest thing on the face of the earth, and definitely needs some kind of range or speed buff. Lastly, in B tier is Octane. He's the most mobile legend in this game, and is the most fun to play. He used to be like Mirage, a completely solo-focused legend, and for that he used to be C or even D tier. Now that his jump pad got an insane buff, he adds so much more to his team. He is the optimal legend to get in by using his jump pad, get a kill, or your teammate's banner, or even third party if you like, and get out without suffering from a not teammate. First up is Pathfinder. Being able to zipline is so fun, and now that his ult can go past the 200 meter mark, he is goated. He is the best legend to use if you want your whole team to get around quickly. Looking at you, Octane. The only thing that I would change about him would be that now he qualifies as like Chunky Boy and takes 15% less damage. Other than that, he's insane. His tactical is great, and if they give him the Chunky Boy status and takes 15% less damage, he would be really high in A tier or even S tier in some scenarios. His tactical is the best to use to get out of fights. He's so good. Next up, we have Revenant. Revenant is by far the most underrated legend in all of Apex. I love Revenant and everything about him. He is one of my mains after all. But there are so many things wrong with him that it brings me to tears to say. First off, he climbs like 17 stories in the cinematic, but can't even climb up 17 meters in a regular game. His crouching ability is good, but his tactical also needs a buff. That one you can like take or leave, doesn't really. His ultimate still makes him the king of third parties and is really viable in ranked games, if you know how to use him to your advantage. He is insane. I don't know why people aren't using him more. The only thing that brings down Revenant is that you need an extremely large amount of communication to play him. In ranked games and even in pubs. You need to be in some kind of Discord call or phone call or even voice chat to tell your teammates when to get in the ultimate, to push, when to push, that you've silenced the other enemy. Communication is important in all of the aspects of Apex with all legends, but it's even more important when you're playing Revenant. Next we have Lifeline. Lifeline is and always will be a standard medic. Just kidding! Her passive is the most broken thing on the face of the earth. Her tactical is useful, but not overpowered, and while it needs some reworks, her ultimate comes in really handy in the final circle. You're able to use it as cover in a pinch, and those heals and armor swaps can come in really handy in the late game. Her passive, like I mentioned earlier, it's so broken. She's so good. She's just such a good legend to play if you've got aggressive legends on your team, like Bangalore, or Bloodhound, or even Gibraltar. She pairs perfectly with a golden backpack. If you get a golden backpack on a Lifeline, you're done. You've won. You've already won. Next is Caustic. Caustic as well. He's great. He is, in my opinion, the best legend to camp with. He did get a slight nerf this season so that when the player dies, his gas doesn't stick around. Before, all of the pop traps and the gas bombs would stay, absolutely staining the battle scene, making it impossible to loot the death boxes, but now that it's gone, he is so much better. It's just so much better now. His ult provides perfect cover when pushing, rezzing, looting up, and his traps are a perfect tool to win you the game. Caustic is probably one of the most versatile legends in the game. Caustic will always be A tier in my book. Next up, we have Caustic's competitor, Wattson. Wattson is still the best legend for holding a spot. While Caustic's abilities are for pure camping, she's a great in-between legend as well. Not campy, but not aggressive, right in the sweet spot. Wattson only got stronger since she got released. Her nodes do more damage and more stun. She now qualifies as a small hitbox legend, which means that her hitbox is now the size of around Wraith's, but takes 5% more damage. And her pylon is the same, but she is still A tier. She's still able to hold 2 ult excels per slot, and still charges her ult immediately, and it still gets rid of projectiles just as effectively. You may not see as many Wattsons around your daily dose of ranked games, but it's not because she is bad. It's just because there are better legends to choose from, and the meta has changed from camping to aggressive. I also think that we will be seeing an extremely large rise in Wattson players this season, considering that her ultimate is the perfect counter for Fuse's abilities. Next up is Crypto. He is still the best stay behind and cover the tracks legend. His drone is a slightly nerfed Bloodhound. It's like a mobile Bloodhound, but with an EMP. Crypto is still the best passive locating legend, and in some cases I would rather have a Crypto than a Bloodhound, just so that in the final circle or large fight scenarios, I can keep my drone in the air, and it will infinitely scan. It's so good. His EMP still shocks you, but you just have to be out of its radius to not get shocked. His drone, when placed correctly, can help you win those really, really important team battles, or even help you win you the game. He is a really good legend, and he will always be A tier. Next up is Wraith. Yep, Wraith. She was slowly decreasing on my tier list for a while, and now I have to toss Wraith in the A tier, where she should be. Enough of these sweaty Wraith mains ruining my fun Saturday morning games. Her hitbox was one of the only things that was keeping her afloat in today's meta, and now that she had a nerf to her hitbox more specifically, she was dumped in A tier. Don't get me wrong, she's still insane, just you will see more effectiveness with the Horizon than a Wraith in Season 8. Her portal is still great, her tactical is still really, really good. I'm not saying that she's bad. That's what I'm just trying to clarify here, guys. She's not a bad legend, she's just not as good as Gibraltar, or Horizon, or Bloodhound in today's meta. I'm not saying that she's not good, guys, she's just not as good. Lastly in A tier is the newest legend, Fuse. Fuse's abilities are unique. Being able to hold 2 grenade slots per slot is broken. The biggest problem with this game is inventory space, and Fuse yeets that out of the window. His knuckle cluster can one-shot Rampart walls when being put up, and they're like a mini arc star when stuck to people. And being able to accurately throw grenades is a work of art. But a lot of people are saying, and I agree with them, that the legend meta is set so high with Gibraltar and Horizon in ranked games that Fuse lacks anything that I think puts him above A tier. He's the perfect legend to use when you start playing Apex. Also, big tip, use his tactical and his passive on dumb dum-dums who like to camp behind Rampart walls and in Caustic traps. Now it's time for S tier. These legends are the best of the best and oftentimes dominate the Apex lobbies. First up is Bloodhound. The only one of the original 6 that has stayed on top of the game all this time. Gibraltar was trashed before Season 3, and Wraith has just had her downfall, which leaves Bloodhound. He is, in my opinion, the best aggressive legend in this game. His passive is so helpful when you're using it in endgame or mid-game scenarios, and is frankly just the most even character in all of Apex. Does not need a buff, doesn't need a nerf. He is perfect the way that he is. He's the epitome of a great legend. Next up is Horizon. Horizon isn't part of the new meta. She is the new meta, well, her and other aggressive legends like Bloodhound and Gibby. Her tactical has only gotten better with a 15-second cooldown instead of the original 24. Her passive, while it may not seem like it's really useful, it is really useful. Especially in situations where you need to get down to the ground from, let's say, a supply ship and you have no time to fix your broken ankles. And her ult is just as good as ever. It is technically had a buff, since when combined with Fuse's ult, it's like a ring of death, of which you can never escape. She is so good. And last but not least is Gibby. Of course, I had to put good old Gibraltar in S tier. His passive is still broken. Listen, please nerf the gun shield. It has 50 HP, but absorbs as much damage that is thrown at it. His gun shield essentially gives you an extra 50 health. His tactical is so useful, and is probably the main reason why he's the most viable legend in ranked. And that ult, that beefy ult, his ultimate is the perfect counter to any team that is dumb enough to rush a Gibby. He's the best legend to choose in a 1v1 due to his versatility and his insane kit. But it's not enough, just keep buffing our boy, give him infinite ammo when using the mastiff shotgun, and an extra 50% less damage when he's inside of his bubble. Come on, Respawn, you know you want to. And we're done. Thank you so much for watching. Now subscribe and like so I can go grind out ranked. Apex Legends gun tier list is coming out in a week. Okay, bye.